Turn one soul ring.
I have to say I'm digging the alternate border Kaldheim stuff.
Oh yes, it's very cool. Here, I'll show you. What was one of the cards? Like,
There's Magda, Brazen Outlaw,
Right.
Halvar, God of Battle,
Right,
and
Magda.
Sarolf, Realm Eater.
yeah, they were very. They're sort of doing like a Norse thing.
Ooh.
So these are the alternate borders, and it's they do look very very cool. Yeah, this set is going to be all about tribal, so I'm gonna dig on that pretty hard.
But yeah, like I'm definitely digging this look, and like it's more of a different border, but I don't think it's as bad and gaudy as like the invocations were.
Oh
there.
no,
Yeah.
those were terrible, and those also they took up so much of the illustration window. Like you lost
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
And it also made it hard to see what the card name was, what the card type was, and that was everybody's complaint at the time. And I'm sure they curled like the Dickens as well.
The Dickens.
But that was a time in like Magic's history that the curling of cardstock was really really bad, even non-foils. And we're seeing that again with Commander Legends, but I feel like Commander Legends cards are a little bit thicker. They're still curling like crazy, but I think the card stock itself is a little bit better.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
So, like I'm into tarot cards, and you get different designs and different interpretations, but like ideally, in tarot, there's sort of set cards and set suits, and typically like you're kind of interpreting the image on the card, and sometimes the design is trying so hard to be whatever aesthetically pleasing or interesting or different,
Or
and
it's a theme.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it takes away from the like practical purpose of the card, like what it is.
The whole like tarot aspect.
Yeah, and I imagine something like this jazzy looking card here. What is this?
It was an Egyptian set. It's Counterspell. Yeah, it was supposed to be like an Egyptian style. It was an Egyptian style block, and so they did these borders, and these were like lottery cards. So you pull, I think it was like
1 in 144 chance from booster packs.
Yes, there we go.
Okay. Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes less is more. And I mean, not that this is like over the top, but
and like where this started was like
the
Zendikar expedition lands.
Yes.
And
yes.
this was what they did. And these are all foil too.
Oh, that's subtle.
So it's more of a full art border thing. And then what they did next was the invention. So they did it with artifacts and gave them special borders.
And even though those ones are very like gold and out there, I think they still kind of like work with an artifact theme.
Oh,
and
yeah. Out of the like lottery cards that were just in these three forms, I think the inventions are my favorite. They have like that filigree border around the art.
Yeah.
Like
I
love
seeing that in person, like the shine that it gives off is just something else.
Oh yeah,
Shiny.
That's yeah.
I actually had to buy an invention. I've never opened one, but I bought one for SRAM because at the time the only way to get Champion's Helm as a foil was to get the invention. And it wasn't that pricey. It was like $30 at the time or something.
You still have it though?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, it's tough to foil out an entire deck, but
oh yeah.
You got to be vigilant.
But yeah, that Champion's Helm's definitely gone up in value, so.
Nice. Oh my goodness, the Soul Ring 454.01.
No.
The Kaladesh invention. Yep. Oh yeah, the inventions and the expeditions, they're pricey. Even the Amonkhet invocations are valuable as well.
Yep.
But you know what? That's not exactly what we're here to talk about today. So we're just gonna start the show. This is Turn 1 Soul Ring. I'm Kevin.
Hey, I'm Eric.
And we have our guest host and editor, Ainsley, joining us today.
Hello, I'm Ainsley.
And we are welcoming you back to our lore series. That's why Ainsley's on the show.
That is the only reason.
Didn't already give it away. And the title, I'm assuming, because, you're already listening to this. Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Although you don't have to know how to read to listen to the show. That's the great thing about
And I feel like
spoken
we've
word.
talked about this before. Yeah.
So, especially for these episodes, this saves you the time of reading a whole novel. And today we're continuing to tell Urza's story about his war against Phyrexia. We're going to be taking the majority of the information that we'll be sharing with you in this two-part series from the novel Bloodlines. And Bloodlines is the fourth and final novel in the Artifact cycle. It was written by Lauren L. Coleman and was originally published in 1999. All these books came out, I think, in 1998 and 1999. This was when Urza's saga, the Urza block, was coming out, so they were just pumping out these books, which is maybe why this one was so bad.
Oh, spoiler alert!
Oh boy!
But this one, well, it's sort of interesting though, because the first novel, The Brothers' War, actually is that story is depicted in the Antiquities set, which came out years before the novel came out in like 1998, 1999. And then they did these three books, which sort of encapsulate Urza's saga, Urza's destiny, and Urza's legacy, which was the first set with foils, by the way. So, it's just sort of interesting that there was that huge gap in time and we went back to Urza. And at that time, in Magic set releases, we'd only been on Dominaria. It's not like today where every other set's a different plane. I remember back when it was just Dominaria.
Back in my day.
Yeah. Which is why I don't travel. It's like, what are you not?
Yeah, COVID be damned. You're not going anywhere.
No. So, Bloodlines picks up not long after the events in Time Streams. The story follows Urza's titular project. The project was designed to genetically engineer perfect warriors to fight the Phyrexian invasion, and it resulted in the engineering of the Metathran soldiers, an artificially created magical race, as well as the birth of a group of individuals whose lineages had been manipulated to ensure that they would be the best of what humanity had to offer.
So genetically modified. There's some GMO.
The soldiers are, but the humans or the creatures, the sentient creatures that were their lineages were manipulated. That's more like selective breeding. So it's less. They're manipulated in a more just like getting two people together to bang.
Oh sure,
Yeah.
Okay.
But
hey, we don't have a Metathran creature type. Come on.
No, I think those might have been errated in the Great Creature Type errata a few years ago, which is a thing. I'm not making that up. And because there's a few of them in the Urza block.
Well, there are.
But they were always blue, and they look pretty cool. More than anything, this project was about the Metathran were important, of course, but it was more about creating people through selective breeding that would be the best of what humanity had to offer, like possibly the Weatherlight's finest crew. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Gotcha. Also, that whole big creature change. Hounds are now dogs.
That's right. Don't forget about that. Woof.
Yeah.
Paco is a dog. No more hounds.
Hey.
So, which is really just a huge barrier to entry for new players, especially in a format like EDH. And other people have to be like, no, they errated that dude. That's not what the card actually says now. But it's written on the card in paper, so.
Why did
You can't change it.
Why did they do that?
Well, it's just, when a game has been around that long, things change. They probably didn't know that was the, like a lot of lizards were turned into dinosaurs because in the artwork, they were depicted as dinosaurs. So there were just things like that where it just didn't really make sense and they changed it that way. And, it's nice that the community is so good that when you sit down, when we used to be able to go and play Paper Magic, you'd sit down and people would play a creature that had been errated. You'd be like, hey, dude, you know what? That was actually errated. So we're going to let it go collectively this time. But, now you know. That's usually what happens around an EDH table, at least in Winnipeg. Right?
Okay, so it's errated, meaning that you don't call it that anymore, but the card is still valid?
Well, of course the card is still valid,
Okay.
but if a creature was like a creature lizard, it was in this huge errata of all these cards. It's now a dinosaur, so it still works as a dinosaur. It doesn't work as a lizard anymore, but the card still says lizard, and the card is still completely legal. It's just if you looked it up on Gatherer, it would say dinosaur. It would be sort of, quote unquote fixed.
You know.
Yeah.
Hey.
So the project, the Bloodline Project, was just part of what Urza planned to use to ultimately defeat Yawgmoth. Urza being first and foremost an artificer, his plan to defeat Phyrexia consisted originally of both creating and combining the pieces of the Legacy, which was a powerful collection of artifacts that Urza had accumulated or built over the course of his life. And if you remember back in our Time Streams series, when Urza was talking about building the Weatherlight, and he was saying this is going to, win the war against Phyrexia. Well, he was sort of overconfident, and the Weatherlight is, he realized that he needed more, and the Weatherlight is just part of that collection of artifacts.
Interesting. I feel like that's also a nice description for sort of our decorating style. It's a collection of artifacts that we've accumulated or built, because all of our furniture is either antiques that we've inherited or IKEA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just, it is a lot like the Legacy. Yes. So Urza realized he needed an heir worthy of wielding such a weapon and capable of leading Dominaria's people against Phyrexia's armies, which led to the creation of the aforementioned Bloodline Project. Selective breeding would create somebody that would eventually be worthy of wielding the Legacy, an heir.
That's what you hope.
Mm-hmm. So the project took centuries, and it wouldn't be until long after it was complete for the Legacy to be used against Phyrexia. But before all that happened, we need to introduce a few new characters.
Welcome.
So first up, we have Rain. Just Rain, because very few creatures have last names. Very few characters, rather, have last names in the multiverse. An artificer, Rain was brought to the academy as part of a small group of newly accepted students and tutors, despite being over the usual age limit for admission.
Right, usually you have to be a child.
Only kids.
Kids only.
Only kids.
That's right. I wonder what the cutoff is. Like, I wonder what the cutoff is for, like, how young can Yawgmoth make the sleeper agents look? I wonder, because that was, and Zancha always looked like, what's the word? It's
adolescent?
And sort of like she didn't really appear
androgynous?
Yes, that's what I was looking for.
We were doing a bit of charades.
Yeah, and I was like feeling my chest a little bit, like pantomiming.
I got it.
But she always like had that look, and the newts don't seem to age. So I don't know. I feel like you could kind of get away with it, but who knows? Like, just make them smaller. What's the problem? But whatever. They don't really get into it in the lore or any of these novels, so we just don't know. And Rain immediately caught the attention of Baron, Master Wizard. Rapidly rising through the ranks to a position as scholar, she eventually gained the appointment of Chancellor, and at this level she often performed as head of the academy while Urza and Baron were away on academy business. And the card that she's depicted in as a legendary creature, she is Rain, Academy Chancellor.
Oh,
She looks good.
She does. She has nice hair.
She has very nice hair.
Mm-hmm. So next up we have Gatha. Gatha was an ambitious young mage, researcher, and geneticist on the Bloodline Project, originally from Argiv, so the same place as Urza and Mishra. He wanted to make his mark on Tolaria through genetic manipulation. He's just an ambitious young guy.
You're in the right place.
Bingo.
That's treachery right there.
Yeah, that is treachery.
The card?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are all card art. Card art.
Card art.
I like the
Card
art. I like this art.
Card art.
I think that's the only one that I immediately recognize.
Nice.
So next up we have Croag. And I don't actually know if this is, and I guess people listening won't be able to see this, but I got a picture of Yawgmoth's bargain. And I don't know if this is Croag, but I looked at some kind of independent lore websites to find out more information about this guy. And they use this image a lot. So I think Croag is the character on the left and the guy on the right might be like a representative for Yawgmoth. But I don't know.
He looks like a Croag.
Yeah, he does.
I like his hair too.
He sure does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like how he's holding like the eye.
Oh, he's got an
I was about to say that.
Yeah. Like,
it's very reminiscent of Hercules, like where the fates share an eyeball.
Yes.
The Fate Spinners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very good. Ainsley and I are on a Disney Plus kick.
Yeah, we're going
'Cause-
through them all, baby.
Yeah. So,
Nice.
Croag was a member of Yawgmoth's Inner Circle, a group of the highest-ranking Phyrexians that answered only to the ineffable himself, and he was a fully completed Phyrexian, like all Inner Circle members. It was a prerequisite. And that just means, to refresh everybody's memory on completion, for Phyrexians, it is when because they're all born as newts, they're all born like Zancha was, and some of them, like Zancha, are designated as sleeper agents, and they stay as newts so they can go to other planes and, get all the goods. But every other Phyrexian will have some amount of completion done to them, and that's where their organic body parts are replaced by artifice, and until the point where they're fully completed and all their organic parts are fully replaced by artifice and glistening oil, but they still maintain their consciousness. I don't really know how that works, but it does.
Cool. And is it intentionally spelt like
like
a pleat in your pants?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. They just spell it. They spell it kind of funny.
That's silly.
Yeah. So
Just decisions.
Last but not least, here for the new characters, we have Davil, and
I like his hat.
Yeah. Well, it's a hat, and it's also practical. So Davil was a terminally ill elder from a place called Coruscant. It was actually, I couldn't find out whether it was a plane or the name of a country, but Coruscants differed from Dominarian humans in a few ways. Many of them possess psychic power, including Davil, allowing them to read the surface thoughts of other beings. In addition to that, Coruscants also had wide skulls with the bones at the crown of the skull never fully joining. So you know how when you're born, you have more bones and then they kind of fuse together. And I think probably having more bones that aren't fused sort of helps you pass through the birth canal.
I think that's
too.
the idea.
But your skull is in kind of, the top of your skull is in kind of three pieces. And that's why babies have that soft spot and you can see their pulse. And it's really kind of surreal. But with Coruscants, they never lose that soft spot, so it's always there. So that's why they wear that little hat,
the jaunty little hat.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if you pull that hat out, you can just bam. I mean,
Get
the
them in the
brain isn't
brain.
exposed, but it's soft.
Soft spot.
Very
It's
soft.
very
And
soft.
I'm guessing it's metal too, so I mean, like, they could always take it off and use that as a bowl as well. So.
Oh yeah, a nice little soup bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love a nice multitasking vessel.
Coruscant.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. That's it for the new characters. And just remember that, much like the novel Planeswalker, this story takes place over a very long period of time, but that doesn't really matter to those living on Tolaria that drink slow time water or live in slow time bubbles, nor does it matter to completed Phyrexians.
And if you don't know what the heck we're talking about with the slow times, go back to time streams and listen to those episodes.
Yeah, it was just a few episodes ago. So I'll say one more thing, or a couple more things about the structure of this novel before we get to the events that take place in it. It's written in a way that I didn't particularly enjoy. Firstly, it jumps decades at a time, and you as the reader is sort of just expected to know that. It doesn't give you a lot of 10 years later, 5 years later. And it's abrupt and it's jarring at times, and you're expected to just fill in the gaps. So that wasn't a lot of fun. And the other issue I have is that upcoming pivotal events that you're expecting that characters have talked about seem to be skipped over, and then the characters in the story will explain what happened, but they're sort of just parceling out, and it's sort of like you just missed that day at school or work. And there are exciting parts, but overall it was boring, and just felt like I had to go back and reread pages because I felt like I had missed something. You know when that happens?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I don't know if you've ever seen the series The L Word.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the end of season 1, there's a couple that's together. And the first episode of season 2, they're just not. And it's like we're supposed to know that they broke up in between the seasons. And that's what I did. I actually went back and was like, I missed an episode, and rewatched. No.
They used to do it with Mad Men too. In between the seasons, there would be like a 6-month gap in the context of the show, and you'd have to like fill in the things. And that's obviously a somewhat popular means of storytelling, but definitely
You have to do it well.
Yeah, you got to do it well.
You got to reiterate
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, ooh, you're gonna want to know what happens. It's like mysterious and stuff. Then a lot of people try it, and it's like you just have like misinformation going on here, and I don't know what the hell's going on.
So after reading this and sort of completing this artifact cycle of novels, I would probably have to say that Time Streams was my favorite. I think that's just because I'm a sucker for both time travel and Karn.
Oh, Karn.
So he's just
Karn Daddy.
He's one of my
Stan
favorites.
Karn.
Yeah, Mono Green Tron right here. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, there were lots of daddies in the last book.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Eric.
But the other two are also really good. I love like Zancha and Urza's relationship. Zancha and Fake Mishra.
Rat.
Rat. So that was an eye-opening experience, finding out that newts were, ready to go.
Getting dirty.
Sexy.
Yeah.
So, all that being said, let's get into this. We're gonna get back to Tolaria, and despite what I said about the time jumps and everything, I do like that this book is broken up into 3 parts, and at the beginning of each part, the other books don't do this, but at the beginning of each part in this book, they give you the years that span that part. So the first part is the human component, and it spans 3385 AR to 3571 AR. So it just kind of gives you an idea of how much time has passed, which is nice. And in case you don't remember from our, all the way back to our Brothers War series, or if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. But AR is the Argivian Reckoning, which is year 0 of that is when Urza and Mishra were born, because they brought on the Argivian Reckoning. So
Urza's a little Jesus-y.
He's a little Jesus-y. Mishra too. Yeah.
Neat.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So it's sure nice that they give you that like time frame at the beginning, but that's still like a 200-year window where they apparently still just like jump around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So I did do my best to sort of
Thank you, Eric.
to sort of do it in a linear fashion and get everything right. But if you want to read the book, or if you have read the book and you want to leave some constructive criticism in a comment wherever you're listening to this, hey, go for it. We'd love to hear
sincerely. That sounded condescending.
Yeah, that sounded condescending, but sincerely, we do love the feedback. So the story begins about 6 months after Urza, Baron, and the rest of the main characters from Tolaria had rescued and resettled the refugees from Sarah's realm. You guys remember that?
I remember.
The Weatherlight getting the powering it up. So Urza was solely responsible for resettling the Saran refugees, and when he arrived back at the academy, he brought with him a handful of new students and 3 new tutors, including Rain. It was rare that an adult was ever admitted to the academy because they could be a Phyrexian sleeper agent, which we briefly discussed, but Rain's natural talent for artifice was what won her admittance and instant status as a tutor. I don't know about the other 2 people. They don't mention them.
So sound like losers.
Yeah, they probably washed out for sure. So 4 months after her arrival, Baron signed papers that promoted her to a full scholar. It's pretty quick.
4 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
She's like, look what I can make.
He's like, he looks old, but his dick works. So shortly after this, Baron took a much-needed vacation in the center of the island, a place that the island's inhabitants had come to call Angelwood. It wasn't a time bubble, but due to the temporal disaster caused by the time machine, the location made the people that inhabited it feel really good and content. Kind of like if you've ever had Molly, I think kind of like that. Like you just want to rub on the nice fabric and
get
people.
hugs.
Yeah, get hugs.
That sounds really nice.
And
just
like
go there
and
now.
just like grind your teeth. Not grind your teeth, but just like clench your jaw.
Clench your jaw.
Yeah, it's a lot of that. That's how people always spotted me.
Yeah, I bet.
Anyways,
let's all take a trip to Angelwood.
Yeah,
I want to go.
We should. So, this place on the island, it was kind of like a resort location that the academy used for vacationing, so to speak. So Rain was also taking a respite in Angelwood, and she and Baron ended up spending a fair bit of time together.
Rubbing against each other.
Just rubbing on each other. And even though Baron had already met Rain and promoted her, it was during this time that he took the opportunity to get to know her a little bit better.
This is nice. I like where this
wink,
is
wink.
headed.
She likes beards. Let's leave it at that.
I mean, gotta like a nice beard.
Oh, yeah. So just as Baron was starting a new friendship with Rain, quote unquote friendship, Karn was feeling pretty lonely.
Aww.
As his best friend Joyra had left the academy several months earlier. Joyra left the academy to return to her homeland, Shiv, to oversee Power Stone production on the mana rig, because they got to pump out those Power Stones. Don't forget about that, everybody. And if you're wondering about Teferi, this is probably the only time we're going to mention him here. He went back to his homeland, Zalfir, I believe it's called, because it's just like there's warring. There's just a lot of there's wars going on. He's got to deal with it. He's he's a high level character. He's a diplomat. He's a mage. He can control time.
Yeah, people need his help.
They need his help. So, when we'll come back to Teferi in this series, but at this time, this is going to be
This is all you get, so you better enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. We're casting Teferi's protection on Teferi at this time, so he's just going to phase out.
Nice.
So, on Baron's return from his vacation, Urza explained his idea for the Bloodline Project, a project that he had been working on for several decades at this point, a fact that Baron doesn't find out for several more centuries, and we'll point that out when he does, 'cause he's a little upset. We briefly mentioned what the Bloodline Project was at the top of this episode, but just to reiterate, the project had two objectives, the first being to create an army of genetically superior soldiers that could be deployed to pacify the Phyrexian invasion on Dominaria, whether that was the full-scale invasion or smaller attacks on the plane. Urza called this race of soldiers the Metathran. And the second objective of the project was to selectively breed white mana-aligned Dominarian families together to eventually create a group of people that would be fit to lead Dominaria against the Phyrexian invasion, as well as to wield Urza's legacy weapon.
What's happening in this nice picture you have here?
This is one of their incubators that they grew the Metathran soldiers in.
Is that Urza?
That's Urza, yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Just chilling. He's pressing his hand on the glass like, hello.
Yep.
He's like, this is my baby.
This is my baby.
Look at the Adam's apple on that one. And they were all sort of, I don't know if I mentioned this, but they were all androgynous.
That's the word of the day.
Yes, it is. And they didn't have, they're I think they're pretty good looking, but they didn't, they weren't designed to procreate. They were just designed to be
one and done
warriors. Yeah. Without spoiling how this book will end, most of the artifacts that made up the legacy are as follows. We already mentioned the Weatherlight, but the other items, the other artifacts are the bones of Ramos, which are his eye, heart, horn, skull, and tooth, the chimeric sphere, the Juju bubble, the Mind Stone, the Null Rod, the Power Matrix, the Salvation Sphere, the Sky Shaper, the Touchstone, the Thran Turbine, the Thran Forge, the Thran Tome, Urza's Might Stone and Weak Stone, his eyepieces, and of course, last but not least, Karn is a part of the legacy.
Oh, that's fun.
Mm-hmm. And that's why he can connect to the legacy, and like he can go down into the engine and sort of like attach to it and pilot it like better than anyone piloting it, any other like sentient pilot, because he becomes essentially one with the ship. And you can feel the ship's thoughts, because just as much as Karn is alive, the Weatherlight is also alive. And
Urza can't like wield the
legacy?
Yeah.
No, I guess not. That's a good question. I actually haven't thought of that. No, I guess not. I guess he needs like someone who's worthy, and Urza's not worthy.
And what is the intent of like this legacy weapon?
Is to use it to kill Yawgmoth.
Yawgmoth Daddy.
Yawgmoth Daddy.
Okay.
And I think the idea is that once Yawgmoth dies, other Phyrexians will die, kind of like when you kill the prime vampire.
I was just gonna say.
But that's sort of what happens. It's sort of an interesting, story, and
good,
we'll get there.
It's a book,
we'll
so hopefully.
There. So, anyways, back.
Wow, that's 20 separate artifacts to make the legacy. It's a lot.
Oh yeah, and they
You lose one, it just doesn't work.
Doesn't work. So, at first, the biggest hurdle to the project wasn't building the infrastructure to grow the Metathran soldiers or finding the Dominarian families that were most aligned with white mana. It was actually how much the project divided the academy. This picture is just like, Dominarians, just white aligned
The
Dominarians.
little cavalry.
Yeah, they're just having a good time. Look at this one.
He's smiling, and they're in a field of flowers.
Yep.
Call the cavalry.
So a lot of the Academy's students and scholars felt that the project was unethical and even bordered on the Phyrexian, creating an entire race to fight a war, essentially a race of slaves, and what would happen to them when the war ended. Not to mention the moral questions that arise when we start to think about selectively breeding sentient creatures without their knowledge or permission.
Mhm.
You wade into those waters and
Yeah.
it's questionable.
I like.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I like it bordered on Phyrexian. Like bordered on the Phyrexians. Like, you're so Phyrexian.
Yeah.
It's like a dirty word.
Why do you have to wear all black all the time?
Because it looks
That's
good.
definitely a huge issue that even like we see to the day. Like, if there's no war, then all these people that have just been doing war for their lives, like, what are they used for?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, we always hear stories about how hard it is for veterans to reintegrate into everyday life because it's a totally different mindset. Like I
World.
can't imagine.
Yeah, truly.
Totally different world.
Anyways, like Urza, or others like Urza felt that the end justifies the means. Many students and scholars left the academy as a result, but Urza had decided that this was an essential step in preparing for the invasion, meaning that those that stayed participated in the project in one way or another. Even the guy like mopping up the floors, he's like, "Hey, I'm here. I'm helping.
Yeah, you are.
I might be morally bankrupt, but this is my job." I wonder who did that. There must have been like artifact creatures that did them cleaning, because Urza's not going to bring just Joe Schmo onto the island to
I thought
to clean.
Urza had the power of Swiffer in his touch. Like anything he touched could turn to clean. Because didn't he touch the stone and it magically got clean?
Yeah, you're right. He probably just goes around at night.
That'd
be a great
montage.
montage.
Like at the end, like he put some music on, like that scene in Matilda where he's like, ooh, ooh. Yeah, I love it.
Also on Disney Plus, check it out. So as long as they had known each other, Baron had acted as Urza's conscience and his connection to humanity. This project was no different, and even though Baron wasn't completely against it, he did have reservations about what might happen if the Academy and its members delved too deeply in what he viewed as playing God. And next up, we have Baron's thoughts at the beginning of the Bloodline Project.
The difference in designs between demon and man is often that razor-thin line which divides the intention of one from the other. No one has demonstrated that principle to me better than Urza. When forced to descend to the level of one's enemy, that fine blade may be the only path remaining back to sanity.
Yeah, and this is kind of like that idea of, when you're fighting an enemy for a long time, and especially if you're losing, it can seem really sort of, I want to say like tantalizing, but it can it can seem really like you really want to adopt some of their tactics because they're beating you. And it's sort of like, if it's hard to fight something for an extended period of time and not end up becoming
and
what
kind
you're
of
fighting.
lose yourself a little bit
in many ways. And that's what I think that's what Baron's getting at here. Man, he looks old in this picture.
Is that Baron?
Yeah, it's Baron.
Well, yeah, he sure does look
But
old.
he's got slow time water, so he's good.
Yeah, I hope so. Rain looks so much better than him.
Yeah, well, she's drinking slow time water too, so it's all good.
Oh, okay.
So 6 years into the project, we get our first introduction to Gatha, in the book. A character that adheres to the ends justifying the means philosophy a bit too much. Nevertheless, he was a brilliant mage and geneticist, and his colder approach to the project often butted heads with Baron's, and this eventually came to a head when Baron discovered that Gatha had been splicing Phyrexian genetic material into some of the Metathran that he was growing.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
They were talking about the whole Phyrexian thing. Here we go.
Is he evil? I don't know. I don't know.
This is fun.
Well, talk about hitting a nail on the head, am I right?
Yeah.
So the Phyrexian genetic material caused the Metathran to mature much faster than usual, and they were also much stronger.
Oh.
The downside was that they were far more violent, and even in some cases, what we would consider to be insane. They're crazy.
So don't do it.
They're getting crazy.
Come
on, buddy.
It's Phyrexian.
It's so Phyrexian.
Gatha's subjects were eventually terminated. Gatha was reprimanded, but allowed to remain at the academy, and even allowed to continue working on the project at a limited level and with increased supervision, of course. And it was at this point that Gatha decided to leave the academy. He didn't leave right then and there, though. He took his time and gathered the tools and material he would need to continue his work somewhere that he wouldn't have to answer to anyone. So we're going to just put a pin in that for now.
Ooh.
Yeah, he's going to stay at the academy, but he's not leaving. He's not leaving right now. He's going to bide his time. It's like when you decide to quit a job, but then you don't just quit. You secure a life preserver, and then when you have it, then you can tell everybody what you really think of them.
There you go.
Assuming you don't care about burning bridges. If you do, don't tell them what you think of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, play. You know what you're doing.
Yeah, play right. Who's this guy in this picture?
Oh well, that's Gatha on the right, and then on the left, it's just some guy at the academy.
He's funny.
Yeah, he has face tattoos.
He has a plate full of Swiss rolls.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they're long too. On Dominaria, the Swiss rolls are twice as long.
I think they're actually scrolls, but they look like Swiss rolls.
We'll never know, will we? So, for the majority of the Metathran's existence before the invasion, they were grown and housed in incubators that were themselves kept in fast time bubbles. Although, once they were fully grown, their incubators were moved to slow time bubbles to wait for their eventual deployment. So just waiting. Grow them, get them to maturity, and throw them in slow time.
That's interesting.
Yep. At first, this was also how Urza planned to breed the human component of the project, those Dominarian families that were most closely aligned with white mana, using fast time bubbles, that is. Urza quickly discovered that although breeding humans in Tolaria's fast time bubbles would save time, the offspring wouldn't be white mana aligned and therefore wouldn't be desirable breeding subjects as the project moved forward. This is a little bit like all the white mana stuff. It's just, it's sort of a little bit too close to
white supremacy stuff?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is funny because white is like the worst color in the game. So
It
I don't.
is not supreme.
No.
I like white.
Oh yeah, no. I can win a game of Commander with mono white SRAM equipment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, it
You
gets
and me
it done.
both, babe.
It gets it done. So the reason for this was that as much as any living thing has a natural mana alignment, the land that one grows up on also determines one's mana alignment. So it's similar to the nature-nurture relationship that we experience in our lives. We arrive in the world with our own personality traits already on board. Where those come from, who knows? But the rest, I believe, is determined by circumstances and environment. And I'm just using that as an analogy for your mana alignment. You have a mana alignment when you're born, and then the environment that you grow up on also has an effect on your mana alignment. I'm not sure which is more impactful, but that's sort of just the way it is. So even though the humans that Urza was breeding on Tolaria were naturally white mana aligned, kind of like Urza, he was, originally white mana aligned, and he became, blue mana aligned, and then he became 5-color mana aligned. But the humans that Urza was breeding on Tolaria were naturally white mana aligned, and Tolaria wasn't. Tolaria and the islands that surrounded it were blue mana aligned, and anyone who spent a great deal of time on them would also become blue mana aligned, especially those that were born and grew up on them. This doesn't necessarily determine what kind of person you're going to be. Take Zantra, for example. She was black mana aligned, and she was one of Dominaria's greatest heroes.
Yeah, she was.
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for Urza's purposes, which were to eventually breed someone that was capable of wielding the legacy and defeating Yawgmoth, he needed someone who was purely white mana aligned. He needed the real thing.
Pure.
Here,
I still feel guilty.
yeah.
I feel guilty.
It's
So as the
Yep.
as the Academy continued to breed the Metathran on Tolaria, Urza expanded the human component of the Bloodline Project to those parts of Dominaria with both white mana aligned lands and white mana aligned noble lineages that he could manipulate. You know, the nice thing in all of this is, even though this feels kind of icky talking about this, all the white mana and white mana supremacy, you know, if you know about the Weatherlight's eventual crew, you know they're not, they're not all white people, and they're not even all people. So
Very diverse.
yeah, it's great. So
he's just trying to breed that perfect white
the perfect one, yes, the perfect one is still
to wield the legacy.
Is yes. So don't worry, we're not gonna have to talk about this in this detail again. But I just wanted to kind of explain the whole mana alignment thing, so we understand why Urza has to, do it the old-fashioned way.
It's Urza being Urza.
So based on his research, Urza calculated that it would take 40 generations of selective breeding to arrive at the heir to the legacy. I don't even know how he came up with that, but that's about...
Yeah, it's just like...
He's like, I've got it! So that's about 1,200 years. Urza planned to move the Academy's best and brightest into slow time areas in order to coordinate the various projects and keep the legacy focused over the centuries. And for context, that's 1,200 years in slow time would be about 30 years to the people living in it. And they also got slow time water, so it's like nothing.
Right.
I don't even know how much things... I think with slow time water, you can get to the point where you just don't age, because I don't think Joyra keeps drinking it, and she's essentially immortal. Like, she's living in Shiv for all these centuries, and she doesn't die. So
yeah, because like she just drank it for a bit, and then it just kind of like...
Yeah, she drank it for...
I guess took, like...
Yeah, she probably drank it for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 decades. But I guess it has, I guess it has a half-life. So
yeah,
Baron would be among that group that would go into slow time, which was disappointing because by this point in the story, he and Rain had begun getting sexy on a regular basis.
Oh, I knew it.
Yeah. But Baron, basically being second only to Urza at the Academy, he could often get what he wanted. So he asked Rain to marry him and join him in slow time, and that's what she did.
That's nice.
It is nice.
Hey.
It is nice. It is nice, but unfortunately, their marriage was actually part of the project. They were subjects in the project. Urza had deduced that based on Baron and Rain's respective backgrounds, they would, if they had children together, create a lineage that would be among the best of what humanity had to offer. So it is nice, but it's also kind of, it's sort of like Urza's playing like Love Doctor. So it's like these people would be good together, like on a personal level, but they'd also give me my...
ideal spawn.
My subjects. So it's a little bit bad, and like they don't know. So I don't know. Is it really that bad?
Oh my god.
They never. It's like if they never find out. I'm that's not how I feel. I'm playing devil's advocate.
No. I know.
I don't know. It's just like they're getting what they want, whatever. And Urza's like
Urza just dabbles in a little bit of everything, doesn't he?
He does. He does.
He's like, I'm gonna work on my secret projects. He's like, then we're gonna play Love Match.
And cue Love Shack.
He's like lighting candles for them and stuff.
He probably set up the whole vacation.
I bet he did.
I bet he did. That rascal. So and that was what the Bloodline Project was all about, was the best of what humanity had to offer. But again, the Weatherlight's crew was also not all just human, so it was sort of the best of what Dominaria had to offer. And that being said, the two, Baron and Rain always seemed very happy together, which was a bonus. They really did seem to love each other, and they really did seem to be perfect for each other.
That's lovely.
Yeah. So now that this part of the story is in motion, and we know what is going to be happening on Tolaria for the foreseeable future, let's find out more about Croag and Davil, because they're kind of going to be in cahoots here for the next little while.
Oh, cahoots!
So when we first meet Croag, he had just woken up from a period of rest and preservation.
That also sounds nice.
A little hibernation, like a
Yeah.
bear. Yeah.
getting his ligaments all oiled up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Gotta have that glistening oil.
Yeah, make it shiny. So this was sort of like stasis and something that Yawgmoth and every member of the Inner Circle had to periodically participate in order to live forever, or at least until a member of the Inner Circle did something that displeased Yawgmoth. Don't make him mad. He'll
Don't
get
make
you.
Daddy mad.
No, don't do it.
So wait. So if you displeased Yawgmoth, you just went into stasis?
No. They had to do this so that they could, sort of live forever. But if they displeased Yawgmoth, he would just kill them. Yeah.
Oh,
You
gotcha.
dead.
Yeah, you did. And I think because he was connected to all Phyrexians, like sort of like a hive mind, he might be able to just like crush their minds. But that's probably not true because he probably would have been able to do that to Zancha if that were the case.
Mm.
So,
yeah, good point.
Yeah. Who knows?
What is this?
Don't wake Daddy.
What is this tentacle turning the page?
I don't know what card this is from. I just thought, this was
cool.
like a point to put a little. I just put these pictures in here for you guys.
Oh, cool.
Maybe you should do like an Insta post with all the pictures from the outline, or like do the ones that we see for this part and then the ones we'll see for the next part.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell people it was mine.
Okay.
So on the night that Croag came out of hibernation, Yawgmoth himself had come to speak with him, which is a big get, I gotta say. He doesn't do that a lot. Yawgmoth shared his plans for the artificial plane called Wrath that was and would continue to be manufactured there. So what the hell is Wrath?
I guess if I was Croag, I'd feel pretty important.
Yeah, he's pretty...
He's special.
Yawg's right there.
He's special,
yeah.
So Wrath, like Phyrexia and Sarah's realm before it, was an artificial plane, unlike the aforementioned planes, though. It had been created by Yawgmoth. And despite what, is out there in the ether, Yawgmoth did not create Phyrexia. I think we talked about this at the beginning of Planeswalker, but he was taken there. It was created by, like, a dragon god or something.
Yeah,
But
so don't you Christopher Columbus, man. Don't be like, I came here, so it's mine now.
Don't do it. Even though that's what he did.
That's what he did.
Man.
So we don't currently have any information regarding how Yawgmoth created Wrath, but we do know that he created it sometime after the breaking of the Shard. That's the Shard of the 12 Worlds. And we went into detail on that in our Planeswalker Explained series. So if you haven't listened to that yet, go back and check it out. Wrath was sustained by a massive machine at the center of the plane called the Hub. It was in this machine that the semi-intelligent material known as Flowstone was manufactured. Wrath was also mostly composed of the same semi-intelligent material. And that's Flowstone attacking a couple of guys.
Mm.
Whoa, so the whole friggin' plane just kind of can move.
If the person in charge wants it to. So in addition to the constant manufacturing of Flowstone, the material itself expanded over time, causing the plane to continue to grow. The hub also housed the Stronghold. The Stronghold was the seat of power on Wrath, and it's where its ruler would oversee the production of Flowstone. This ruler was referred to as Evankar, and one of the benefits of this position was that they could control the Flowstone both telepathically and telekinetically, because like we said, it is semi-intelligent, so you can control it, you can communicate with it, and you can just move it with your mind.
Fancy.
So part of Croag's mission, besides killing Urza, was to find a being that could serve as Evankar of Wrath and produce enough Flowstone to fulfill the artificial plane's purpose. And that purpose was the invasion of Dominaria. And it's actually kind of ingenious, Yawgmoth's plan here. He's had some kind of not so good plans, but this is a good one. Wrath was located right next to Dominaria in a kind of pocket plane, which made it difficult to find for planeswalkers, and it made it easy for Wrathy troops to travel to Dominaria using what they called the Wrathy Overlay. That was basically the eventual plan for the invasion. Yawgmoth realized that he would never be able to transport a sizable invasion force to Dominaria using only ambulators. Those are just those Phyrexian portals that they would use to essentially planeswalk. So he came up with an artificial plane that would grow and eventually literally overlay itself onto Dominaria. And over time, Yawgmoth could use those same ambulators to transport troops to Wrath, just little by little. And then, when the time came for the full-scale invasion, they would be able to simply walk into Dominaria from Wrath.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's real smart.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah.
So now that Croag had been tasked with orders from his god, he began to look for the one that could rule Wrath and, more importantly, manufacture and control Flowstone. So Croag's search brought him to Coruscant. Like we said at the top of this episode, we're not sure if this was a country or plane, but it's where Croag found Davil. All the members of the Coruscant species had some amount of psychic powers, but Davil was a prodigy among them. Unfortunately for him, though, his body had fallen prey to a terminal illness, and in their society, if you get sick, you're done. So you just get shunned, just like you're like a leper. They don't like sick. They don't take care of their sick. They're not like us.
No.
Well, I guess they're just gonna replace all that broken parts and make him Phyrexian.
I hope so. I hope so.
He's gonna die anyways. He's like, yeah, I'll come to your side.
So it seemed like good luck for him when Croag arrived and offered him completion. What Phyrexians refer to as swapping out all their organic parts for machine and glistening oil. The glistening oil is really the important part.
It glistens.
And it has a pungent smell.
Oh, God, it stinks. And it's super flammable. Don't forget about that.
Right.
That just seems so impractical, but whatever, man.
You do you.
Yeah.
So all Davil had to do to save his life was to sell out his species to Phyrexia, and after the way he had been shunned for his illness, he had no problem doing so. Which, I mean, you can't really blame the guy.
No.
You know? So shortly thereafter, Croag transported him to Wrath, explained the job that he would have to undertake, and left him to manufacture the Flowstone. But not before making a couple of things clear. First, Croag told him that it would take time for his completion to be completed. Croag would also take measures to keep Davil's illness at bay, but at this point in the story, that is as far as he goes with Davil's, physical upgrades.
Gotcha.
Second, Croag explained to Davil that he was not the Evankar of Wrath, but only the steward of the plane. If Davil was successful in growing the plane to the point that it could overlay with Dominaria as well as kill Urza, Croag would consider making Davil the first Evankar of Wrath. I really like how Croag is just like he's just like delegating the job he was given.
Of the plane.
Yeah, he's like, you do, I'm going to find a guy to do this stuff for you, Yawgmoth.
And when do you like peanuts or pretzels?
And that guy is good. If that guy screws it up, then, I'll find another guy, but that was that guy's fault. That's not a reflection on my management style.
No, Yawgmoth daddy.
So until then, Davil was, of course, only a placeholder. And things went on like that for a while. Croag pulled the strings, and Davil worked hard to grow and control the Flowstone, as well as taking on the task of breeding and improving new negators to hunt down and kill Urza. And that's where we're going to pick back up for part 2, or the conclusion, I should say, of our Bloodlines Explained series.
Thrilling.
Yeah, it's pretty good so far. And next in this particular in this first installment, we didn't really jump around in time too much. We did that kind of like 6-year jump, but in the next one, there's going to be a lot of.
We're going to be jumping.
We're going to be chunking it along. Because we got to get all the way to like in the high like 4,000 ARs
after Rhesus.
That's right. They don't have Rhesus, so no wonder they're so.
But they have
unhappy.
Urza.
So we'll be back next week to do part 2. We'll have that ready for you. And until then, thank you all for listening. You can always find us on Eric. We forgot to do this. Where can people find us, buddy?
Hey, people can find us over on Instagram at Tournament Soul Ring, the podcast. Also, if you want to get a hold of us directly, Tournament Soul Ring, the podcast at gmail.com. We're also putting everything on YouTube. To find us the best, type in Tournament Soul Ring, the podcast. And if you like what we do, we got a Patreon. Patreon.com/Tournament Soul Ring.
That's right.
Nailed it.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Well, we'll talk to you next week. And thank you all for listening. And Ainsley, thanks for being on the show with us.
My pleasure, gentlemen.
All right, everybody.
Thanks for joining us. It's always fun.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Strive to be an Evankar.
No kidding. Be best.
Turn one soul ring.
I can hear your cat, Eric. I just.
All right.
Okay, I'm just gonna start again.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. It was really cute. Okay.